Hi guys, today we're going to create a fantastic car render in just 20 minutes using only free assets and free Blender software. I saw this Hyundai N74 Vision concept and I thought it looked really amazing. I particularly like the dark and moody look of this image and thought we could kitbash something similar together in Blender. We're going to cover lighting, camera settings, depth of field, where to get free models, compositing and loads more pro tips. Even if you're a complete beginner, you should be able to follow along with this. Let's get started. Okay, so we'll start with a brand new scene here in Blender. I've got my keyboard shortcuts down in the left hand corner here. Press A to select everything and then X to delete everything. Press N on your keyboard to reveal this sort of side panel and click on Blenderkit. Now if you haven't got Blenderkit, it's a fantastic, fabulous piece of software. You can download it from the link in the description. They give you a ton of free materials, models, HDRI scenes. It's definitely worth a look. So we're going to start off with the searching for the Hyundai Vision. I'm actually just going to log out of my Blender profile to make sure I don't use anything paid accidentally. So you should be able to follow along with this just for free, same as I am here. We'll just change the search filter so it puts free first. And there we can see the Hyundai Vision. So just literally drag and drop that into your scene. Okay, once we've got that loaded in, it does look really nice actually. Just pop it into look dev mode. Yeah, so we're going to swap the scene over to cycles render. So click cycles here, and if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, you can swap over to GPU compute. That should speed things up quite a bit. And then if you go to this view mode here, you can actually see the headlights illuminated. I think actually what we'll do, before we go too far, we'll just tweak these headlights a little bit. This car actually has some really nice kind of shapes on the headlights, and I want to kind of pick out these sort of W shapes. So click on a headlight, tap tab to go into edit mode. So if you just press this up here, face select, or you can press 3 on your keyboard, and then you hover over this, and then you press L, actually selects everything that's linked. So what we're going to do is go down to the materials, and we're just going to change that to probably this one here, and then press assign, and that basically makes that part go dark. So we've just kind of got this nice part highlighted over here. I'm just going to do that for the other headlights quickly. L, assign, tab, L, click material 03, assign, tab, L, material 3, assign. That's it. Okay, so now we've got that lovely shape on the headlights, the nice sort of W shape. Let's get some actual light into the scene. So we're going to add in an area light. So if you just press Shift and A, go down to light, let's add an area light. Let's press G to grab, Z to move up on the Z axis, S to scale. Let's just change our viewport settings to make it a little bit faster. So just set this to denoise, samples to 16, and also while we're here, set the render samples to 32. That should be fine. And let's just increase the amount of light from this. Let's try 250 watts for a start. Just grab it a little bit, move it a little bit further up. This just helps us get an idea while we're working. I think we're just going to change the color of this bodywork slightly as well. Let's just change this. Click on the material and select the base color to something a bit lighter, maybe just with a hint of blue in it. Kind of gets a bit of a nicer sort of steel look over there. Okay, if you find this working cycles is a bit too demanding on your computer, you can switch back to like viewport shading or something. That kind of gives you still a pretty good view of what we're getting here. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, let's add a little bit of ground. So press N again to bring up Blenderkit, and we're going to search for gravel pathway. Let's just select this one here called gravel pathway 01, and we're going to pop that on the floor. We'll move it in a second. Let's just scale it, S to scale, just make it a little bit bigger, G to grab and move it on the Y axis. So that's G and Y. Okay, so now we've kind of got a road for the car to sit on. And we're also going to add in, let's add some gravelly bits at the side. So if you search for boulders, and the first one, boulders photo scan, should come up. We'll drop this down the side here. And we're just going to tweak this around a little bit so it's kind of not so high. So R to rotate, R to rotate, then Y to rotate on the Y angle. And we're just going to bring this down a bit. G to grab, Z to move down. Let's just have it so it's a bit more like that. I think we're going to rotate it a little bit on the X angle as well, just to kind of get it a bit flatter. Just sort of little tweaks. So we just got it sort of poking through the road there. Shift and D duplicates this, then you can press Y to move it on the Y axis. Select them both, Shift D again, and then X to move on the X axis. Let's just pop that on the side of the road. I think we're going to just need to tweak those other ones a little bit. So let's rotate them on the Y axis. So that's R and Y, and just put them like that. So they're kind of not going over the road too much. Okay, let's add a camera in next. So Shift A, add your camera in. We're going to set the lens, so make sure camera selected over here. We're going to set the lens to 85mm, which is like a telephoto lens. And then if you kind of get your viewport roughly in this sort of location here, you can see the camera's already in the scene, but it's not in the right place. So if you kind of get your viewport set roughly to where you want the camera to be, and then press Control, Alt and 0 on your number pad, you can actually see the camera move straight to where your viewport was looking at. A really nice way to move your camera around is just to go to View, Navigation, and then Walk Navigation. And then you see by moving your mouse, you can kind of adjust where the camera's pointing. And you can use your W, A, S, and D keys to move backwards and forwards, left and right. And you can use Q and E to move up and down as well. It's a great way to position your camera really quickly. So let's get your camera roughly about there. I think I kind of want the car to be in the center. I think we could also add a little bit of drama to the camera by adding a little bit of roll. This is called a Dutch angle. So I'm just going to change the Y rotation a little bit and then just go back to the walk navigation just to get a nice sort of angle again here. Right, let's just tweak this. So at the minute you can see we've kind of got holes in the bottom corner of the scene that we don't want. So I'm going to grab this on the Y angle, so it's G and Y. I'm going to move it along a bit and then press Shift D and again move it on the Y angle and just push it behind the car. Okay, the same with these. Let's just move these around. G to grab, Y to move on the Y angle, and let's just tweak it so it kind of looks about right. Okay, smashing. Right, the next thing we'll do, we need to add some, let's get the lighting sorted a bit better. So what I kind of want, let's go into the rendered view again. So at the minute we've kind of got this, obviously the light is just rendered from above. It kind of doesn't look very natural or realistic. So what we'll do, we're going to scale this light. So S to scale and Y to scale on the Y axis. No, X, we'll stick with the X axis. So we've kind of got like a thin long light like this. And what we can do, if you go into the constraints menu on the right here, we'll add an object constraint and we'll get it to track to, and then we'll click on the car. And now when we move the light, so press G to grab it, you can actually see it moves around the car, always pointing at the car wherever we are. So we'll use this quickly to kind of put the light, let's just move it over this side here. I think I actually want it to scale the other way, so let's swap that round. So scale X. Let's scale it to be wide on the X axis and then scale it thin on the Y axis. That's better. Let's go back to our camera view. And I think we're just going to move this so it's a bit further down as well. So G and Z. So I kind of want this to be like a highlight, a rim light sort of covering the top of the car. I think maybe we need to take the brightness down as well. Let's do that. Right, let's try 25 watts. I kind of just want this to be white, but not too white. And I think it's probably a bit too close. So let's just move it a bit further away. Sometimes it's easier to do this from top view. Okay. Right, so we've got kind of a nice rim light here. I also want a light to kind of highlight this spoiler at the back. So I'm going to press Shift and D, duplicate it and pop it right at the back here. And what we can also do, let's just scrub it a bit further and move it a bit further away. If it's a bit too bright, that should be 25, not 250. And let's do the same with that, 25 watts. Okay, so now we've kind of got these just little subtle lights on the back and the side of the car, and we want a main key light, so I'm going to duplicate this one more time. Let's put it around the front of the car and up so it's facing the car, and I think we want this one to be much brighter, so let's try 150 watts. Okay, let's start to move that around so it works for us. I think maybe we'll move it even further around and perhaps make it a bit brighter. Right. Okay, we're starting to get there now. Let's leave it at that for now. Let's add some more things in. So I think it'd be really good to have a sort of a HDRI lighting the entire shot. So let's search for one of those. So in Blenderkit, we can click on HDRIs. Let's find something cloudy. Yeah, something quite dark and cloudy, so one of these probably. I'm going to set the resolution to 4096, but if your computer's a bit slow, you can go down to 1024 and it should be fine. Okay, so we can see we've got this sort of nice cloudy sky, but I really want some of these sort of more dramatic clouds to be behind the car when we look at it through the camera. So if you go to your world settings and then click on the arrow next to your HDRI, and then click on this arrow next to where it says vector mapping, you can actually change the Z rotation to move the clouds around where you want them to be. So I'm just going to keep moving this round until I get to that nice patch of clouds, this patch here. So it's where I want it. And I'm also going to use the Y location to kind of bring those clouds down into the picture a bit more. And also, if the HDRI is too bright and I want this to kind of be more dark and moody, we're going to change the strength of this to be 0.5 or maybe even lower, 0.3. Let's kind of just get almost like it's nighttime in this scene. Let's add some mountains in the background. So let's search for mountains. Okay, so we've got some nice mountain results here. Let's choose one of these. Maybe this one's here, Snow Mountain. So click and drag it into your scene. I think we're going to need to make it quite a bit bigger. So click on it and then press S to scale and then type in, let's try 100. I think we're actually inside the mountain here. Yeah, we are. Okay, let's just grab it, press Shift Z to make sure it doesn't move on the Z axis. And let's just grab it and let's think where the camera is. Okay, so let's move it much further away from the camera. G to grab, Shift and Z so it doesn't move up or down. And let's put it about there. And I'm going to grab it, move it down in the Z axis. Let's go to the rendered view and see how that looks. Okay, that's looking pretty nice. Right, make sure you saved your work if you haven't saved it yet. I think let's finish this off with a little bit of fog. So back into Blenderkit, let's search for some fog. We've got a nice wispy fog here. Let's just pull it down and drag it straight onto the, I'll drag it onto the floor. And actually you can see it there, so it's just literally a plane with fog texture on it. So we're going to grab it, G to grab Z to move it up, and G to grab Y to move it back. And let's just pop into camera view. Let's just see where it is in the camera view. I quite like that there. Basically it kind of gives the outline much better of the spoiler of the car. In fact, let's just move it down a bit as well. G to grab, move it down a little bit there. Kind of adds a lot of atmosphere into the car. That looks really nice. Great. Okay, so back to the camera. We can add a touch of depth of field to the camera. So click depth of field on. What I like to do is in viewport display, if you click show the limits, you actually get this sort of cross here of where the camera is actually focused to. And oddly enough, you can actually see that moves with this distance slider here where the focus point is. And I'm actually going to leave it on this, just about the front of the car here. So now if you adjust the f-stop of the aperture, you can actually see we can control very precisely which part of the car is in focus, and you can use the distance slider to focus on different parts of the car. But I think what we're going to do, that's obviously too much value. So we're going to set to a value of around 2, maybe 2.5. So we kind of get the car nicely in focus at the front in particular, and the mountains are starting to blur out the back. So it's F12 to render. And that's already looking pretty nice. I think what we could do to this is do some tricks in the compositor to kind of add a bit of glow to the lights, and maybe let's do some little color corrections on this as well. Okay, so let's hop over into the compositing tab at the top and we'll click use nodes, and then we can see everything. So we've got at the minute a render layers and a composite layer. So we're going to press Shift and A, and we're going to add a viewer node as well. So let's pop that up there above the composite. You can click and drag from the image to the image, and then if you hold down Shift and drag right click across, it does this kind of nice joiny thing. It's pretty cool. Okay, so now we can see the image as we're looking at it. So if you kind of go back over to your render properties of the scene here, you'll see there's a color management tab at the bottom. So what we're going to do, we're going to change this look to be high contrast, maybe not that high contrast, medium high contrast. And now we can kind of play around in here with some of the tools that are built into Blender. So what we'll do first, we're going to add in a glare node. So press Shift and A, and you can just search for a glare node and then drop that in here. And we don't want this kind of star effect, we want it to be like a fog glow. So that kind of gives a nice little glow here, and you can adjust how much of the mix you get by just sliding this mix slider. So if you just want a little bit of glow, you can have it quite low. So I think we'll leave it at 0. And the threshold is basically the point at which lights become glowy. So if you set it high, it doesn't work so much, and if you set it low, you kind of get a glow over the whole scene. So you just kind of got to dial it in to about, you know, where the light's affecting it. Okay, so we've kind of got a nice glare now going on. So we're going to do a bit of color correction on this now. So we're going to press Shift A again, and we're going to search for the color balance node, and we'll drop that in just there. Okay, it's a lovely way to get this orange and teal kind of color cast. So you kind of dial the color, the shadow area, you want that to be slightly blue. And the highlight area, we're going to dial that into the orange. Zoom in a bit on that. And then you can adjust the amount, the overall factor of this just here as well. I think we're going to probably add a little bit more orange to this glow into this in a minute. Right, the final thing I'm going to do, we're going to crush the blacks slightly, which basically means we're going to take the blacks and we're just going to make them a little bit lighter. It gives it a slightly more cinematic look. So if you search here, you can go straight to the color and you can actually look for the RGB curves. Click and drag it on there. And what we'll do, we'll just grab the endpoint. Let me get that in there. And by lifting this up, we're actually making the blacks sort of more grey. So we're just going to lift it up a tiny fraction, just above the bottom here. And we're also going to put a little bit of an S curve in it, just to give it a fraction more contrast. Okay, let's go back into this and just let's dial some of our light settings back in a little bit. So the nice thing you can do here is actually have the compositor set to the camera, and then you can actually see what the compositor is doing in your viewport. Let's add a bit more light into the scene. So this kind of key light here, I'm going to make it just a fraction orange. And I'm going to make some of these other lights a fraction blue. So I'm going to click this backlight here. We're going to make this a tiny bit blue. And where's the other light gone? And if you can't see it here, you remember it's always in the outliner over here. So it's this one here, which looks like it's hidden behind the fog plane actually. Let's just grab that and just move it inside the fog plane. And we're going to make that one slightly blue as well. And I think we're going to make this main key light, which is this one here. I'm going to make this a bit brighter. So let's increase the brightness on this. I'm just going to grab it and just move it around a bit till I get the look that I want. I think I'm actually going to make it a little bit wider as well. And I'm feeling like I've crushed the blacks a little bit too much. So I'm just going to go back into here and just take that back a little fraction. Right, let's just adjust this color correction. That looks good there. Okay, I think we've got a really nice scene working out here. I think I might just add one more light to the front of the car. So I'm just going to duplicate this one again, Shift and D. I'm going to bring it around to the front of the car. just to let me show you what that does. So I'll switch it off, switch it on. So it just kind of brings out some of these nice details in the bumper here. Okay, I think that looks pretty nice. Let's do a final render with F12. I think that's looking like a really nice, stylish render of the car. Okay, thanks for bearing with me, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you get a chance, like and subscribe the video, because that really helps the algorithm pick these videos up. Thanks very much, and I'll see you on the next one.